The sun rose gently over the busy streets of Lagos, its golden rays kissing the rooftops of the wealthy estate where Chief Eze and his family lived. Chief Eze was a very good man with a good heart, loved helping others no matter where they come from. Oluchi, the joy of the family, was the only child of Chief Eze and his wife Lolo Adaora, a wealthy and kind-hearted couple. Oluchi was a very happy child, always smiling. She was a radiant beauty, her skin glowing like polished ebony, and her eyes shone with innocence and dreams. She lacked nothing money could buy, wore the finest clothes, and attended the best school in the neighborhood. But little did she know that fate had a cruel twist waiting for her. One Friday evening, as Chief Eze was returning from work, he met a young man outside his gate looking dejected and hungry. He begged Chief for a job as a gateman. Chief Eze, filled with compassion, stepped out his car and inquired who the young man was. "Hey, young man, what is your name and what are you looking for?" Chief Eze asked. "Ogre, my name is Abdul. I am new in this city and I am looking for a job. I can be your gateman and or even your driver. Please sir, help me." "It is okay, young man. You can get inside and have something to eat first. Afterward we can talk and I will see what I can do for you," Chief stated. Abdul went inside Chief's home as instructed and he was given food to eat and he enjoyed a delicious meal. He was surprised when he was shown a guest room, where he rested, and later passed the night there and slept peacefully. The following morning, Chief Eze had a lengthy talk with Abdul, who told Chief and maintained that he could work for him as a gateman and equally as a driver. At the end of their discussion, Chief saw Abdul as a humble fellow who could be trusted and he decided to give him a job as his gateman and also offered him accommodation in his home. Abdul was so happy to have gotten a job as Chief Eze's gateman and was ready and willing to serve and work. But Lolo Adaora had her reservations. She was not totally convinced that Abdul was exactly whom he presented himself to be. She complained to Chief that she was not comfortable sharing her home with a total stranger, bearing in mind that they had a little daughter who lives with them. But Chief assured her that there would not be any problem having Abdul in their home. Following the opportunity given to Abdul, he started working for Chief Eze as a gateman and also doubled as his driver each time the need arises. Gradually, Abdul became almost like a member of Chief Eze's family and he blended very well with the entire family. Few months after Abdul came into Chief Eze's family, he showcased signs of good behavior and earned not only Chief's trust but Lolo Adaora's confidence. He automatically became part of the family and Chief Eze trusted him enough that he answered business phone calls while in the car with Abdul. One fateful morning, Chief Eze told Abdul to load some luggage including bags containing huge sum of cash into the trunk of his car. The cash was for Chief Eze's new ongoing building project in the eastern part of the country. Abdul did as he was asked and loaded the car trunk with the luggage. Few hours later, Chief Eze, Lolo Adaora and Oluchi were all in the car ready for a trip to their hometown. Moments later they started the journey with Abdul driving the car. It was a long journey from Lagos to Chief's hometown in the eastern region of Nigeria. While they were still within the neighborhood, Abdul complained of not feeling so well and told Chief that he could not continue the journey with them. Chief Eze, knowing how long the trip was, asked him to turn the car and head back to the house, which he did. Upon their return to the house, Chief Eze asked him to stay home. Abdul got down and took his luggage from the trunk of the car, while Chief and his family continued the trip without Abdul. Chief's wife, Lolo Adaora, insisted that she would drive and Chief Eze allowed her. Their black sleek SUV was seen cruising in the city and everything was good and perfect. As they hit the highway, everything seemed normal. They were excited and discussed the upcoming festivities in the village. Oluchi was excited as it was yet another opportunity for her to see her grandmother and she could not wait to get to the village. Halfway into their journey, while on a lonely highway, masked bandits, suddenly like a nightmare unfolding before their eyes, emerged from the nearby thick bushes. They stood at the middle of the road waving deadly weapons in an attempt to stop them. "Stop the car now!" one of them roared, pointing his gun directly at them. Chief Eze, who had no choice, instructed his wife to comply. Lolo Adaora stopped the vehicle and within seconds, they were dragged out. The bandits ransacked the car and offloaded their luggage, including the bags containing the huge amount of money they were traveling with and other valuables. Then, without any warning, they shot Chief Eze and Lolo Adaora in an attempt to silence both of them forever. Lolo Adaora died at the scene, while Chief Eze, who survived the attack initially, was rushed to the closest hospital where he later succumbed to his injuries. Oluchi stood frozen, at the scene, her small heart pounding like a talking drum. Tears streamed down her face as her mother's lifeless body lay on the road and her father seriously fighting for his life. The leader of the gang grabbed his weapon and commanded the young Oluchi to move. They dragged her deep into the forest, without knowing what their next line of action would be. But as fate would have it, a commotion arose when a loud gunshot echoed in the distance. In the confusion, Oluchi broke free and ran blindly into the darkness of the forest. She ran until her tiny legs could carry her no more. She ran and wandered deep in the dense forest, until it became dark. The night was cold. The air thick with fear and strange sounds filled the silence. She curled up near a tree, sobbing, until sleep took over her tired body. The next morning, Oluchi woke up and saw an elderly man sitting next to her. The man assured her that she was safe and should cry no more. He later told Oluchi not to move from where she was and promised to send help to her as soon as possible. After that, he disappeared into the thin air and Oluchi became afraid. Moments later, a local hunter, Juru, was on his usual hunting rounds when he stumbled upon the frightened girl. "My child, what are you doing here all alone?" he asked gently. Oluchi, too weak to respond, burst into fresh tears. Seeing her distress, Juru carried her home and took care of her. As she regained her strength, she narrated her ordeal to Juru, who was eager to know why she ended up in the forest all alone. Oluchi first asked Juru who the old man who sent him to rescue her was, but Juru, who knew nothing about the old man, told her that nobody sent him to rescue her. Unknown to young Oluchi, the old man who was guiding her all through the cold night and comforted her when she woke up was not human but the spirit of her late grandfather. While Oluchi was in the hunter's house, the old man visited her once again. This time he told Oluchi to fear not, that everything would be okay, but advised her to prepare herself for the battle ahead. "My child, you are safe now. But be prepared for the challenges ahead. Do not be dismayed when those you trusted betray you, and always do good to those who do bad to you," he said. "But who are you? And why are you following me?" Uncle Juru said that he does not know who you are. Oluchi stated, "My child, I am your guardian angel. One day when you grow older you will discover who I am. You should remain focused, my child, and be yourself. With hard work you will come out victorious," the old man said and vanished. Later that day, after hearing from Oluchi, Juru the hunter went towards the scene of the attack. He met some policemen who were busy at the scene and he reported to them that the only child of Chief Eze who survived the attack was in his house. The police informed Juru that their prompt response to a call they received from a passing motorist immediately after the attack yielded a positive result, as they had apprehended 3 members of the gang, including the gang leader. The police initially ruled the attack as another sad case of banditry, but on further investigations they were able to connect the dots and apprehended the criminals. When they took Oluchi to see if she could identify any of the criminals, she was surprised to see Uncle Abdul amongst the criminals arrested by the police. Oluchi was so confused and she shouted, "Uncle Abdul, what are you doing here, sitting with the criminals?" she asked. "No, leave my uncle. Uncle Abdul is not a criminal. He is our gateman and driver as well. Please let him go. He is not a bad person," Oluchi pleaded. At that point Abdul, who could no longer hide his identity, confessed being the mastermind behind the operation, but he maintained that he did not want Chief and his wife dead. He asked Oluchi to forgive him. "I never told them to silence Chief and Madam forever. I only told them to carry the bags of money that were in the car trunk, not to silence them," he subbed. He further narrated that after loading the cash into the trunk of Chief's car that very morning, he secretly called their gang leader and gave details of Chief's travel schedule. And while they began their journey, he faked being sick and was brought back home. It was after Chief and his family finally left the compound that he made another call to the gang and later joined them and laid ambush. He further confessed that he was part of the gang and their modus operandi was to identify wealthy families, approach them for help and jobs. Once they get such employment as a cook, gateman, driver, or gardener job, Then that would give them access to the family and they would gather necessary information and attack few months after being employed. That was how Oluchi's beautiful world turned dark forever, from a happy girl, born with a silver spoon to a wretched orphan overnight. Chief Eze's next of kin was contacted and soon, Oluchi was taken to her father's only sister, Aunt Ifema. She looked very loving and caring, with a smiling and welcoming warm expression when she received and hugged Oluchi, which gave her assurance that everything would be fine. "Don't worry, my dear. I will take good care of you, you are equally my daughter. Everything will be okay, my child," Ifema assured her. But promises are sometimes like empty calabashes. Not too long after Aunt Ifema took over her late brother's properties and had access to late Chief Eze's acquired wealth as Oluchi's guardian, her true colors emerged. Unexpectedly, she began to treat Oluchi differently to the extent that she stopped her from attending school. Oluchi was turned into a housemaid, who did all house chores while Aunt Ifema and her children became Oluchi's boss. Aunt Ifema's son Chidera and her daughter Amaka enjoyed good life from late her father's wealth. But she washed dishes, cleaned and swept the compound all alone. Most times when Oluchi cried due to the ill treatment from her aunt, Chidera and Amaka would mock and laugh at her. And they often treated her like trash, and enjoyed seeing her serve them as a maid while they lived like king and queen. "Look at this poor orphan," Chidera sneered one day. "From riches to rags overnight," he laughed at her. They dressed so smart, looking posh and wealthy while Oluchi could barely have enough food to eat. But the worst was yet to come. As Oluchi grew a bit older, Ifema's husband, Uncle Paul, began preying on her innocence. The first time he touched her inappropriately, she cried and ran to her Aunt Ifema, but she was blamed instead. "Lies," Ifema snapped. "My husband is a respectable man. You want to bring trouble into my home, you ungrateful girl. I brought you into my home to help you and now this?" "No, Auntie, I am not lying," she cried. The inappropriate touching by Uncle Paul continued, night after night, and she did her little best to resist him as much as she could. When Oluchi turned 14, she could not take it anymore. One stormy night, she ran away, her bare feet hitting the wet ground as the rain fell on her heavily. After covering a significant distance, she got tired and later found refuge in an uncompleted building, still under construction. She sat outside the building, reflecting deeply over the events that had unfolded in her life. She later went inside a room in the uncompleted house and continued thinking while her own aunt and the family would treat her the way they did, and she remembered the old man's advice. While in deep thought, she became very tired and slept off on the cold bare floor. She woke up the following morning and realized that workers had already arrived to resume work on the building early that morning. She spoke to one elderly amongst the workers and pleaded to work with them for a little pay as she was homeless. "My daughter, you are too young to work in such an environment. This is a hard labor made for men." The man answered, "Ogre, please try me. I am strong and hard-working. I can even work more than some of these men. Please just give me a try," she pleaded. When the site engineer saw them, he walked up to her and asked, "Young girl, what is the matter? Is everything okay?" "Good morning, sir," she said. "My name is Oluchi and I am seeking for a job here." The chief engineer, looking at her age, responded, "You are still a child and a girl, we cannot let you work with us. It will be seen as child labor." The man had compassion on her and gave her some money to get something to eat. "Nevertheless, young girls, have this money. It can take you a long way for feeding. That's all I can help you with." Oluchi received the money with thanks. "Thank you, sir. God will bless you richly," she said. After standing there for a while, she left the premises. After the workers had closed for the day and went home, Oluchi returned and passed the night there once again. The next morning, before the workers could arrive, she got up early, freshened up and wandered into the bustling city's central business district when she was stopped a very well-dressed, decent-looking man. Oluchi was marveled to hear the man demand to take her home and pay her handsomely if she could give him pleasure. She was dumbfounded and left in a hurry, but the story wasn't quite different from the next person she approached for help as well. At that very point, Oluchi was highly disappointed as she rejected all their advances and believed she would survive with hard work, remembering her father's slogan, "Dignity in labor." As she made up her mind, she dashed straight into the bustling motor park, in that area and started begging to join them as a bus conductor who usher passengers to the minibuses. The park chairman, Barber, noticed her. "What's your name, young girl?" he asked. "Oluchi," she whispered. "What are you doing here?" "I came to look for job." "No, my daughter, there is no job for you here. The only job we have here is for bus drivers and conductors, which are reserved for men," he responded. "But Ogre, just try me, I can do the conductor job. If I fail, then you can sack me," Oluchi pleaded. Barber, seeing her determination, gave her small tasks as a bus conductor at the park. Though it was a man's world, but Oluchi worked harder than even some of the boys, and she excelled to the surprise of many, who doubted her ability. She started working at the motor park as the only female motor conductor in the field, an occupation reserved solely for men. Barber was impressed by her determination and hard work. When Barber noticed that she sleeps in the park, he called her one day and took a walk with her. While they walked together, he asked to know Oluchi very well, and when she narrated her story to him, he felt pity for her. The next day Barber took her to one of his houses with tenants and gave her a room to stay for free. "Oluchi, you have suffered enough already, you should stay here from today. I will be your father and help in any way I can. Just continue to be a good girl and continue working hard. You will go far in life," Barber advised. Oluchi was so grateful and she thanked him for the kind gesture. "Thank you, Barber. God will bless you with good health and long life. I promise to remain a good girl and continue working hard. I will not disappoint you," Oluchi said. Soon, she became the park's favorite, respected and admired. Barber took her and treated her as his own daughter. By the time she was about 20 years of age, her diligence and hard work as a motor conductor paid off. Barber trusted her enough to hand her a bus to drive. And Oluchi progressed from a motor conductor to a driver. And she became the most popular driver in the men's dominated world. One fateful day, as she drove along the highway, she spotted a luxury SUV parked by the roadside. A casually dressed man stood beside it, looking frustrated. She pulled over. "Ogre, wedding happen? What's wrong with your car?" she asked. "I don't really know, it's my boss's car and it just broke down in this lonely place." All this while, no one was eager to help, the man sighed. "Can I have a look inside your bonnet?" Oluchi asked. "Okay, but what for? Are you a mechanic?" Oluchi did not respond, but she took her tools and went straight under the opened bonnet. Without hesitation, Oluchi inspected the car and within minutes, she found the fault and fixed it. The man was astonished. "You're very skilled," he smiled. He took out money and offered to pay her for fixing his car. "No need, sir. It is just a help. Everything is not about money," she said. "But sir, this place is not safe and is definitely not a place to experience a car breakdown. Thanks. But I would appreciate if you accept this little token from me." "As I said, I am fine, sir," she said. "Okay, if you say so, I rest my case. But may I know your name and your phone number, please?" he asked. "I am Oluchi by name, a commercial bus driver. And you?" she asked. "My name is Chinedu. I am the private driver to the owner of this car," he responded. "Okay, here is my number." She took his phone and entered her number and they went their separate ways. Meanwhile, Chinedu was a successful businessman, but disguised himself as a mere driver. He was intrigued by Oluchi's beauty, selflessness and good heart, which he knew was a package very rare in today's world. A few days later, he phoned Oluchi, and they spoke, laughed, and bonded. In fact, he was amazed how polished Oluchi sounded on the phone. From there they just became friends and often spoke over the phone. Day after day, Chinedu began to think a lot about Oluchi and he could not take her off his thoughts. He began to wonder why a beautiful, hard-working young brilliant woman like Oluchi would end up as a bus driver, an occupation widely known to be for men. He knew there was more to Oluchi's story, but he couldn't place a finger on it. One day Chinedu invited Oluchi to his home. Upon her arrival at his place, she was shocked to discover who Chinedu really was, a very wealthy young man. Meanwhile, Chinedu was engaged to Princess Adaku, a beautiful woman from a royal family, who studied abroad and just returned home. During one of their dinner dates, Princess Ardaku looked down on the waitress who served them. She shouted furiously and treated her badly. Disappointed, Chinedu kindly asked her not to treat people in that manner, but she flared and spoke disrespectfully to Chinedu. "These low-life people should not even breathe near me," she said arrogantly, making Chinedu uncomfortable. And they left the restaurant arguing. One day, Chinedu invited Oluchi to his home for his birthday celebration. Oluchi was elegantly dressed in beautiful attire Chinedu gifted her for that very event, and she looked so polished and different. On seeing Oluchi in her simple but elegant attire that was similar to her outfit, she sneered, "Who let this commoner in here? Who invited you here?" Chinedu stood up and confronted her. "Enough. This is becoming too much for me to bear, Princess Ardaku. I cannot continue this relationship or marry someone who lacks kindness. We are not compatible, Princess Ardaku." Princess Ardaku angrily left Chinedu's home and their engagement was later cut off. As Princess Ardaku left, Chinedu went straight to Oluchi and pleaded with her to overlook Ardaku's disrespectful behavior and further comforted her. "I didn't mean to cause you and your fiancé any trouble. I didn't offend her in any way. Please, can I go home now?" Oluchi asked. "No, Oluchi, it wasn't your fault. I know Princess Ardaku very well. There is no way I can go ahead and get married to her. It cannot work." He then pleaded with Oluchi to stay and she agreed. They spent time together that evening, and as they began to talk, Chinedu learned more about her struggles and he was shocked. "Oluchi, your suffering is over," he said after she opened up to him on her journey in life. Subsequently, they started a relationship and Chinedu sent Oluchi back to school. She graduated from school few years later and had a good job. When it was time for marriage introduction, Oluchi took Chinedu to Baba, whom she so much respected and see as a real father. Baba was so happy to see Oluchi with a success story. He blessed their union and wished them well. After they visited to Baba, Chinedu, who knew much about marriage tradition, insisted that Oluchi should take him to any of her relatives. Due to Chinedu's pressure, Oluchi finally visited Aunt Ifema, who took over Chief Eze's home. Oluchi was surprised to find her Aunt Ifema living all alone in misery after carelessly squandering Chief Eze's wealth. As she knelt down pleading, Oluchi learnt from her that nobody knows the whereabouts of Chidera and Amaka, who ended up doing drugs and became street dwellers. She also told Oluchi that shortly after she ran away from their home, her husband Uncle Paul died mysteriously. Aunt Ifema pleaded for her forgiveness and Oluchi cried as she reflected over her past and the pain they caused her, but she later forgave Aunt Ifema. She returned few days later with Chinedu and introduced him to Aunt Ifema as her fiancé. She could not believe that an orphan who left with nothing could return after several years of struggles and sufferings a fulfilled person. She learnt that in this life, no condition is permanent and whoever God has blessed, no man can curse. Oluchi was born a blessed child with silver spoon, but her joy was cut short and her life almost ruined, but she stood up and faced her adversaries. Finally, her determination, hard work and good heart made a way for her and her story inspired many. From the ashes of her pain, she rose like a phoenix, proving that destiny always finds a way. Oluchi finally made lemonade out of the lemons life gave her. Thank you for watching. Please kindly support this channel, subscribe and share. Remain blessed.